Today we're talking TIE fighters, and I just realized why you two are dressed that way.
It's a special occasion. The dress code did say semi-formal.
Well, I wish someone had told me. Now I feel underdressed. Hello all, I'm Josh, this is Josh Build Stuff, and this is a special occasion because this is one of two new ships that was released in January 2021, the other one being the X-Wing, which we have also already reviewed, so go check that video out as well. But today, we are talking about the all-new LEGO Star Wars Imperial TIE Fighter. This is set 75300, contains 432 pieces, and costs $40 here in the US. That's right, a $40 TIE Fighter to start off 2021. Pair this ship with the $50 X-Wing that also just came out, and you can get two of the most iconic ships from all of Star Wars for less than $100. It's still expensive, but a better deal than you might have gotten a year or two ago. Included with this set, we get a TIE Fighter ship. That much should be obvious. We also get a TIE Fighter pilot minifigure. Again, that should be obvious. And then other minifigures we get with this set are a Stormtrooper and a new droid called NIL-8. But we'll talk details about this ship and the minifigures, and I'll give you my opinions on both right after the build. The build for this set was predictable and yet enjoyable. Obviously, you build the little body of the ship first and then two different wings, which are exactly the same, and so some repetition is to be expected. You could say if you've built one TIE Fighter, you've built them all, but in this case, you're building the TIE Fighter in a slightly smaller scale. That being said, there were still some interesting build techniques used, and it was still a rather enjoyable build. So my initial impressions on this set. I was prepared to be underwhelmed, and I may have even been a little critical when reviewing the X-Wing, but with this set, maybe I'm just in a better mood, maybe it is a better set, but honestly, I think it's pretty good. Initially, when I saw they were releasing slightly scaled down versions of these ships, I thought there would be a lot more compromises, a lot more corners cut in order to achieve these same ships at a smaller scale and therefore a smaller price point. However, I don't think we lost a lot of detail or integrity in this ship. Maybe it's just the fact that a TIE Fighter, by its nature, is a little bit simpler in its design, especially compared to an X-Wing, and so it's not as difficult to just scale things down a bit. I do think it looks nice and decent and close enough in size to the X-Wing that we got as well, and if you see I'm holding them up next to each other, it doesn't look tiny in my hand. It's definitely a little smaller than some X-Wings and TIE Fighters that we've gotten in the past, but honestly, it's not bad for what it is, especially for only $40. I also have the results of the very important play test for both of these ships. Not a lot of LEGO YouTubers do this, but I think it's a very important step in evaluating the true nature of these ships. The play test is where you and a colleague of yours, preferably like a 3.5-year-old, you take both of these ships and you fly them around the room, making plenty of swooshing and pew-pew sounds. Now, the X-Wing didn't do great in this test. A lot of pieces fall off. It's a little flimsy. He isn't able to lock the X-foils in attack position or whatever it's called, and it just didn't go well with that ship. However, with the TIE Fighter, maybe it's just the fact that it's a simpler design overall, but his small hand, or I guess not his, but you know, I'm not just telling a story about my 3-year-old and I playing with LEGO sets, but a smaller person's hand could more easily grasp and pick up and fly around this little ship, and of course they could more easily fire the flick missiles, which honestly that's all a 3-year-old really wants to do with any of these ships. As far as detailing goes on this ship, I dig it. I don't think that, again, much was lost by this ship getting a slightly smaller scale. On the wings, there's still like enough of depth and dimension that there's still a little bit of greebling and a little detail there that it still looks nice. The body of the ship, again, looks fine. You can open up the cockpit in the front and the top, and the nice thing is that this size isn't so small that we couldn't reuse some of the same printed pieces that we have from other TIE Fighters that we've gotten in the past. Also, the LEGO TIE Fighter pilot can fit nicely inside this ship. It's a little more cramped to him, but, you know, he hasn't said that it's bothering him, so I can only assume that it's plenty of space, at least for him. Not that we are in the business of talking to inanimate objects or anything on this channel. That would be a little weird. As far as play features, well, of course, those don't matter much to you or I, who are just going to put a ship like this on a shelf and look at it and feel proud of ourselves for having bought it. But as far as a kid goes, I mean, it's got little flick missiles, which honestly, like I said, that's all a 3-year-old really cares about on this ship. You could get rid of everything that is the TIE Fighter part of this ship, just give him the little spring shooters, and I mean, honestly, he'd be as happy as if I'd given him, I don't know, a $500 LEGO set. For minifigures in this set, we get a TIE Fighter pilot, which obviously makes sense to have here. I think this is the same figure that we've gotten in other sets in the past. However, it's worth saying that LEGO did a good enough job on both this minifigure and on the TIE Fighter pilot helmet that came out a few months ago, because my 3-year-old even walked in and said, "Daddy, that's the guy that you have a helmet of." And I'm like, wow, that's pretty good recognition skills for you, bud. We also get a Stormtrooper minifigure with this set, which again is not a new minifigure, but we're always happy to have more Stormtrooper figures in our collection. This is the version that I call the two-tone Stormtrooper. That's for a couple of reasons. One, because it has the black and white plastic printing on it, the black on the inside, the white on the outside, obviously. I also call this two-tone because on the printing on the helmet itself, there is only black and gray used, which is slightly inaccurate because the stripes down the cheeks of the Stormtrooper are supposed to be blue, and I believe we've gotten blue stripes on Stormtrooper minifigures in the past, and so I'm a little sad that it doesn't exist on these versions. Just note that all of us here at Josh Build Stuff would very much appreciate an accurately colored Stormtrooper helmet. Isn't that right?
What'd you say? I wasn't listening.
Really? I'm talking about Stormtroopers here. Lastly, we get a little droid who has a new torso and new leg piece who is named Annihilate. You get it? Annihilate. Annihilate. They really got to rub in the fact that this is a bad guy droid by giving him a name like Annihilate. It reminds me of an idea that I had when they were introducing characters from The Last Jedi and they were showing that black droid version who looked like BB-8 but like the evil version of BB-8, and I'm like, oh, they should call that dude BB-H-8, like BB-Hate, and then you'd have BB-8 and BB-Hate, like the dark side antithesis droid to BB-8, but when I tried to suggest that idea to Rian Johnson, well, he wouldn't return my calls, or my tweets, or my DMs, or my Facebook messages, or my Snapchat messages. But honestly, at this point, after The Last Jedi, if Rian Johnson reached out to me, I don't think I'd respond to him either. So overall, I bought this set with mediocre expectations, and I ended up being pleasantly surprised. Honestly, that's not a terrible way to go through life. Just expect the worst out of situations, and maybe in the end you'll end up happy. That might just be called being a pessimist or a cynic, and that's how you end up old and alone, but maybe you shouldn't take advice from people on YouTube. So I am curious to know what you all think about this set. For only $40, we can't be too critical, right? Personally, I give it a B-. Lost a few points on the dismount. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and go check out the X-Wing review video. That's also live. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
Come on.
No, I'm not gonna go put on a tie just for this outro bit of the video. By this point in the video, there's like 10% of total viewers still watching. I'm not gonna do it. Are you happy? Now we all look ridiculous. I feel like a darn waiter. Also, this shirt fit a lot better before this whole quarantine happened.